Imagine giving your all to your family, only to find out your wife betrayed you and your daughter, not even yours. Just when life couldn't get any worse, you're hit with a deadly illness. But instead of dying, you're reborn, and this time you're done playing nice. This is the story of a man who lost everything and came back to conquer the stars as the fearsome evil lord Liam. At the beginning of the story, we witness a massive fleet of spaceships and towering mecha robots floating in the vastness of outer space. The tension in the air rises when a girl urgently announces the arrival of enemies through a warp gate. The captain, caught off guard, reacts with visible shock. Moments later, a warp gate materializes in space, but instead of a massive army, only a single, ominous mecha knight emerges. The captain, puzzled, questions the enemy's strategy, wondering why only one warrior was sent to attack them. Despite the confusion, the fleet opens fire on the lone figure. However, the mecha knight skillfully evades every attack and swiftly breaches the command chamber. In a matter of seconds, he annihilates the captain and his team. Alarmed, the remaining forces dispatch their own mecha units to stop the Black Knight. But with terrifying precision, the knight draws his sword and effortlessly dismantles them one by one. Facing an entire army, he finally unleashes his ultimate slash, a devastating attack that slices the main spaceship clean in half. The resulting explosion destroys every enemy mecha in the vicinity. Inside that fearsome black machine sits our main character. With a chilling calmness, he mutters that his enemies are pathetically weak. He praises his maid AI Amagi for her flawless strategy. She accepts the compliment respectfully, calling him master. The protagonist Liam then orders Amagi to launch a full-scale assault. She immediately relays his command to all allied ships, instructing them to prepare for an attack. Suddenly, a new mecha unit arrives through a warp gate, piloted by a girl who wastes no time destroying an enemy robot. Liam notes her late arrival while she apologizes and begins eliminating more enemies with deadly precision. Amagi, maintaining her efficiency, commands all allied forces to engage the enemy fleet. Overwhelmed, the enemy begins to collapse under the coordinated assault. As chaos erupts, Liam lets out a maniacal laugher. Amidst the destruction, a woman appears and tries to pitch the 7th Weapon Company's battleships to Liam. Uninterested, Liam coldly instructs Amagi to take her order and remove her from his sight. With the enemy forces nearly wiped out, Liam mocks their weakness and revels in the destruction. He commands them to kneel before him and beg the evil Lord Liam for mercy. Then, summoning a massive bazooka, he fires directly into another enemy ship, causing a spectacular explosion. As he finishes off the last of the enemy mechas, he dares any survivors to fight back, saying that each battle makes his revenge for his past life all the more satisfying. At this point, the story flashes back to Liam's previous life. He's just an ordinary man, exhausted from a long day, commuting home on a crowded train. When he arrives, his wife Mika greets him at the door. He asks about their daughter, Kanami, and Mika replies that she's already asleep. She then mentions wanting to adopt a dog after seeing one at a friend's house. Liam reminds her that they can't afford a pet right now. The next day, the couple visits a pet shop to look at dogs. Liam reminisces about a beloved dog he once had. Despite his struggles, Liam cherishes the small, happy life he shares with Mika and Kanami. His job is difficult. His boss frequently berates him, and his co-workers often take credit for his hard work while pinning their mistakes on him. But he never complains. His family is his source of strength. One day, a friend invites Liam to watch a movie. On his way there, he happens to pass by a cafe and sees Mika sitting with another man. Shocked and confused, he returns home later and casually asks her how her day was. She lies, saying she went to Kanami's school. Liam doesn't press her further. Trying to reassure himself, Liam convinces himself that Mika would never betray him, but trouble starts at work. His computer stops shutting down properly. A few days later, he visits the same cafe and breathes a sigh of relief not seeing Mika inside. But just as he's leaving, he spots Mika walking nearby with Kanami, and the same man from before. To his horror, Kanami refers to the man as Papa. This moment shatters his world. Liam begins questioning everything. Lost in thought at work, he struggles to stay focused. Then, his boss scolds him again. Liam tries to explain that his PC is malfunctioning, But suddenly he receives a call. Konami has had an accident. At the hospital, doctors ask for blood from both parents. Mika's blood matches, Liam's does not. The truth hits him like a sledgehammer. At home, he confronts Mika, demanding to know if Konami is really his daughter. Through tears, he begs for an explanation, heartbroken that everything he worked for was a lie. But Mika responds coldly. She blames him for never being home, for working long hours yet earning so little. She says he failed to make her happy in their 10 years of marriage. She claims she raised Konami alone, and now she's leaving. She takes Konami's hand and tells her it's time to go to her real father. Liam pleads with his daughter, asking her to stay, but Konami quietly says she prefers her other papa more. Broken and betrayed, Liam spirals further when his boss accuses him of embezzling 5 rupees crore using the office computer, evidence that points to his workstation, which had remained active due to the technical issue. He's fired on the spot. Now divorced, homeless, and disgraced, Liam lives in a tiny rental room. Mika takes full custody of Konami and still demands child support. On top of that, Liam must repay the missing company funds or face prison. From a devoted husband and loving father, Liam is reduced to nothing. But in the shadows of his suffering, a fire begins to burn. Just then, his friend messaged him with excitement, sharing that he had just bought a brand new game, the same one the main character had always wanted to play. He considered replying and asking if they could play it together, but ultimately, he decided to remain silent. Each day, he worked tirelessly, hoping that his hard work would eventually be rewarded by fate or divine grace. Though he wasn't a man of fame and had no children, his heart was full of love and kindness. But life had other plans. Instead of a reward, he received a cruel diagnosis, an illness so serious that treatment was beyond his financial reach. With no hope left, he lay in his room, quietly waiting for death. As he stared into the void, he recalled an old saying about beloved pets returning at the end of one's life to guide their soul. Just then, something strange occurred. A mysterious light appeared before him. Within that light, he saw something shocking. The person who had stolen millions from his computer was none other than his superior, the chief. But what hurt even more was the realization that the chief was also the biological father of the daughter he had raised as his own. Everything had been a lie. He had been betrayed by the 2 people he trusted the most. He discovered that Mika, the woman he had loved deeply, had never felt the same. She had never intended to have a child with him. The little girl, Konami, was not his daughter after all. Crushed by the truth, he could only beg the universe for it all to be a dream. But a voice coldly reminded him that it wasn't a dream. It was his reality. The voice questioned him, reminding him of how much he had given, only to receive betrayal in return. When asked what he wanted now, he declared that he wanted revenge. The figure in the light was amused by this raw anger. It explained that it had come to reward him for his good deeds. But the man's bitterness seemed stronger than any sense of goodness left. The figure asked what he would do if given a second chance at life. The man replied that he would live for himself, doing whatever he pleased, without caring about others' expectations. The figure accepted his answer and presented him with photos of different worlds. Each world was unique, some full of monsters, others with dinosaurs, and many more. The man chose a world that showed advanced robots and flying battleships. The figure described it as a sci-fi fantasy world where magic and machines coexisted and royalty ruled supreme. He promised to place the man in a noble family and handed him a contract written in blood. The man signed it without hesitation. His soul was then transported to a new world where he would be given a second chance. This time, he would live only for himself. He was reborn as Liam Sarah Wainfield, the only son of a ruling noble family on the planet Astalar, located in the Elven system, a lush, jungle-covered world. Fast forward to his 5th birthday, where his mother excitedly brought him into a grand room to present his birthday gift. When Liam opened the box, he found nothing inside. His mother then explained that he would be receiving an AI-made robot instead. Suddenly, countless visual options appeared before him. She told him he could design every single part of the robot himself. If he skipped a part, the robot simply wouldn't have it. While scrolling, Liam came across some inappropriate design options. Despite being mentally 36 years old, his body was still only 5. He was stunned that such features were even available. Just then, his father entered the room with a proud grin. He had a gift of his own. He officially announced that everything he owned now belonged to Liam, and that Liam would be the next head of the family. The parents would move to the Imperial home planet, and Liam would stay behind and send them money each month. After Liam signed the documents, he became the new head of the household, a count with noble status. Looking around at his new life, Liam made a vow. In his past life, he had suffered in silence, but now, with wealth, power, and freedom at his fingertips, he promised himself that he would live without regret. He would live as an evil lord, indulging in chaos and doing as he pleased. He silently thanked the mysterious figure who had given him this second chance. Back on Earth, the figure stood beside Liam's lifeless body and laughed mockingly. He found the man's former life pitiful. Now it was time for others to entertain him. Meanwhile, Mika and the chief were planning their marriage. Neither of them felt guilt for what they had done. But just as their future seemed secure, the figure snapped his fingers. Police stormed in and arrested the chief for embezzlement and workplace harassment. The evidence against him was undeniable. Mika panicked and asked what would happen to her and her daughter now that the chief was gone, but her cries were ignored. The figure chuckled, reminding her that the one man who had truly loved her was now dead. From now on, she would never experience happiness again. He walked into a portal, whispering that it was time to guide Liam down a path of pain and suffering in his new world. He couldn't wait to feast on the bitterness that would come once Liam realized the truth. However, just before the portal closed, Liam's dog appeared in spirit form and followed the figure. Determined to protect his master, the dog entered the new world alongside him. Elsewhere in the galaxy, a fierce space battle unfolded. Princess Christiana Lata, Rosebred of the Holy Kingdom of Lirve, appeared on the battlefield, effortlessly taking down enemy ships. Her kingdom's fleet followed up with devastating strikes, wiping out what remained of the enemy. Her elite knights charged forward, defeating every last soldier. Victory belonged to Christiana. Meanwhile, in Liam's mansion, he received his custom-made AI-made robot. These robots, called dolls, came in elegant packages. As Liam touched the packaging, the AI activated. A graceful, fairy-like figure emerged and introduced herself as Amagi. The family's butler, Bian, explained that Amagi would stay by Liam's side forever and only needed 2 hours of maintenance per week. Aside from that, she would belong solely to him. Liam carefully examined every detail of her design to make sure it was exactly as he had ordered. Satisfied, he took Amagi into another room. When Bian tried to follow, the door closed behind them. Inside, Liam enjoyed a massage from Amagi. He even joked about taking a bath together, to which Amagi agreed without hesitation. Moments later, Bian knocked on the door and asked if anything inappropriate had happened. Liam casually responded that while his body might be 5 years old, his mind was 36. Bian reminded him that even 36 was still considered young. In this world, adulthood began at age 50, and a person was only considered fully grown at 100. People here lived up to 500 or 600 years. Amagi added that such long lives gave people a chance to experience far more. Liam found that interesting. A long lifespan meant endless opportunities for enjoyment. However, Bian warned Liam to be cautious. AI robots weren't popular anymore. In the past, they had nearly caused humanity's extinction. Only a few brave individuals had stepped forward to save the world back then. The empire had been built by the very people now rejecting it. Because of this, the imperial nobility held a deep resentment toward AI robots. Despite their importance and potential, they were seen as threats rather than allies. Sulia, puzzled by the contradiction, wonders why his own mother had gifted him an AI robot, but the answer is withheld from him. Eventually, the truth comes to light. Liam's parents had abandoned him. The reason was the crushing debt that burdened the Winfield family. Once a great and wise lineage founded by Alistair, Liam's great-grandfather, the family had since fallen due to the incompetence of his grandfather and father. They lacked the ability to govern, and the family's domain crumbled under their leadership. This truth hits Liam hard. He realizes he can no longer pursue his old dreams of dominance and power over others. Worse, they have no means left to repay the family's overwhelming debt. The situation is only going to deteriorate from here. Meanwhile, at a local bar, commoners discuss their grim reality. A 5-year-old boy has become their new king, and experience tells them taxes will rise as every new monarch starts with heavy taxation. Life has worn them down, and now, all they can do is hope that the new ruler has a kind heart. At the mansion, Liam reflects on his circumstances. It becomes clear that his existence may have only served the purpose of inheriting his parents' debt. In his previous life, betrayal was all he knew. People had only used him for their own benefit. Now, he fears history may repeat itself. Recognizing a shared sense of isolation and rejection, Liam finds common ground with Amagi, the AI robot. They are both outcasts in society. He decides they should team up and pull themselves out of the situation together. Amagi accepts this new bond with complete devotion, declaring her sole purpose is to serve him. As long as she is by his side, she believes she can never be cast out again. She pledges her loyalty through every hardship. Liam, thinking about humanity, begins to introduce her to the traditional 3 laws of robotics, but he stops himself, realizing he's once again prioritizing others over his own needs. For once, he wants to live for himself. Instead of the old rules, he creates new ones tailored to his own vision. A maid robot must never harm her master, must follow all his commands, and must protect herself as long as it doesn't violate the first 2 rules. These new principles are immediately embedded into Amagi's system. Determined to restore his family's lost honor, Liam declares that humanity no longer matters to him. He wants results. Amagi warns him that her ideals may not align with government standards, but since Liam knows little about the world, she recommends an education capsule. It will transfer all essential knowledge into his brain over a 6-month period while she manages his domain in his absence. Liam hesitates. Entering a robotic capsule feels like a betrayal of his human identity, but he reassures her that, as her master, he won't let humanity perish. Beyond, however, believes the Empire will never accept AI as full administrators. Amagi counters this, pointing out that no law forbids AI robots from managing domains. Liam insists on going through with it and asks Beyond to bring the capsule. Despite Beyond's continued protests, Liam ignores him and walks away with Amagi. As Liam prepares to enter the capsule, he questions whether AI can truly experience emotions. Amagi admits she doesn't know, but something inside her changed when he offered to form a team. Liam accepts this as a sign that he did indeed receive the best AI robot available. The capsule closes, and for the next 6 months, Liam will remain in suspended learning while Amagi oversees everything in his absence. After a long time, the pod finally unlocks, and Amagi is there to greet Liam as he steps out. Once he's dressed, he checks how long he's been inside, and Amagi casually tells him it's been 2 years. She then fills him in on how things are going in the Banfield territory, and everything seems to be running smoothly. Liam appreciates all the work she's done and says he wants to go out and see things for himself. Amagi decides to take him to the spaceship docks first. It's his first time seeing his land with his own eyes, and the huge armored suits catch his attention right away. He gets curious and asks if he can try one. Amagi quickly sets it up for him and explains how the suit moves by just imagining what you want it to do. Liam hops in and tests it out. It feels natural, like he's flying through the air with ease. Feeling pumped, he says he wants to try it in a practice fight. Amagi agrees and arranges a mock battle. Soon, the head of the defense squad, Machida, shows up to spar. As soon as they start, Liam charges in and swings, and Machida pretends to be knocked out. But Liam can tell he's faking. He's not happy being babied, so he demands a proper fight. Machida, having no choice, gets serious. The next clash ends fast. Machida easily takes Liam's weapon and drops him to the ground. Liam is shocked at how badly he lost. Amagi then explains that the suit works off mental focus. And veterans like Machida have way more experience, so their control is on another level. Embarrassed but determined, Liam immediately tells his butler Brian to find him a proper trainer. Brian tries to talk him out of it, saying he doesn't really need to fight, but Liam won't back down. In his past life, he was always weak and pushed around. Now, if he's going to live as a fearsome ruler, he needs to get strong. No excuses. A bit later, Liam meets a guy named Yasushi. Liam is impressed by how cool and confident the guy looks, and right away asks him to be his teacher. Yasushi agrees, though Amagi seems unsure about him. Something feels off, but Liam ignores it. Yasushi acts like a true warrior, and that's enough for Liam. Still, Amagi asks him to check if Yasushi is the real deal. Liam agrees and asks for a demo. Yasushi takes them to a quiet spot in the woods where he set up some training dummies made of bamboo. He says he's about to show his special move, one he won't repeat. Liam listens carefully and even tells Amagi to record it for later. Yasushi gets in stance, slightly moves his sword, and in the blink of an eye, all the bamboo gets sliced in half. Liam is completely stunned. He wants to see how it was done, so he asks Amagi to replay it in slow motion. But even slowed down, the footage shows nothing, just blur. Liam is convinced that Yasushi is insanely fast, maybe even beyond what machines can capture. He's thrilled and begs to become his student. Later that night, Yasushi sneaks back to the training spot, laughing to himself. Turns out the whole thing was a trick. He had already cut the bamboo to fall apart on cue. The super move was just for show. And now, thanks to that little stunt, he's got himself a sweet deal, getting paid without doing any real work. While Liam's been off training, the princess was traveling to meet a gang of space pirates. She went there hoping to strike a deal for peace. The pirate boss Gauze was the one who suggested it in the first place, but when she shows up, he mocks her for coming alone. What he doesn't know is, she didn't come unprepared. Her backup was ready and waiting, and one signal could have wiped his ship off the map. She thought this would scare him into behaving, but it didn't. Gauze was way too calm for someone in danger. That's when things took a bad turn. News came in that her home planet had just been surrounded by enemy ships. She couldn't figure out how they got past the security until Gauze smugly told her that parts of her so-called alliance had secretly switched sides. And her crew confirmed the worst every ship she thought was on her side had aimed their weapons right at her. She was stunned. The entire alliance had flipped, and she'd walked right into a trap. With no way out, she had to sit there and listen to whatever Gauze wanted from her. Back on Liam's planet, he was training non-stop with Yasushi, but things weren't going how he hoped. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't pull off the flashy move he'd seen. Amagi, who's usually helping him with everything, didn't know much about sword techniques, so she couldn't really help either. Yasushi had been making Liam drill the same basic moves over and over for years. Liam was sick of it. Sure, his skills had gotten better, but he wasn't looking to be pretty good. He wanted something cool and powerful he could actually show off. Meanwhile, Yasushi was chilling in his room, flipping through manga like always. Even though he was a total fake, he actually did know some basics. Just enough to get by, and for 3 whole years, he'd been living the easy life, getting paid big money for doing the bare minimum. But Liam suddenly barged in, asking again to learn the special move. Yasushi panicked and quickly claimed he was quitting. He said he already showed that move once and wasn't going to do it again. Liam, feeling guilty, immediately apologized and begged him to stay. Yasushi played it cool, pretending to forgive him, but deep down he was sweating. If Liam ever found out he was a fraud, the whole gig would be over. Once Liam left, Yasushi breathed a big sigh of relief, hoping the act still held up. But just as he was relaxing, Liam popped his head back in. For a second, Yasushi froze, thinking he'd been caught. Luckily, Liam just came to say he'd be busy the next day and wouldn't show up to train. While all this was happening, the princess was now a prisoner, locked away in Gauze's quarters. She demanded to know what he planned to do with her. He calmly said she was in the perfect spot, to watch. She didn't get it at first, but then he gave the order, and every ship under his control pointed their cannons at her planet. That's when it hit her. She begged him to stop, but Gauze didn't care. With a single command, he had her world blown to dust right before her eyes. Back in Liam's territory, he was still upset about not learning the move. But life had to go on. He had responsibilities. So he asked Amagi to go over the monthly status report with him. Amagi brings Liam some charts showing how the planet's economy is doing. The debt is still huge, but factories and farming areas have been slowly improving. Liam's glad he trusted Amagi to manage everything. She's doing a solid job, but she isn't fully satisfied. She points out that even with all the resources they've thrown into public projects like helping the poor, the results just aren't measuring up. Liam asks to see the numbers behind the program, and thanks to all the time he spent studying finances in his past life, he quickly spots something fishy. He tells Amagi to call in the guy who's been running that department. The man shows up trying to play it cool, but Liam already knows he's been quietly pocketing money. Turns out, the guy switched vendors and fudged some paperwork hoping no one would notice. But Liam's not new to this game. He's read enough reports to catch weird spending patterns in seconds. What makes it worse is that the guy didn't even bother hiding it well. Liam isn't even furious about it, just kind of amused. After all, his whole plan was to live like a villain in this new world. But then Amagi drops a surprise. That noble had already been under investigation once for stealing funds and somehow got off scot-free. He claimed it was one of his workers who did it, and that guy got executed for it. Liam doesn't buy it. There was no real proof, and everything smells like a cover-up. Liam just quietly stands up and grabs his sword. The noble starts sweating, trying to explain how every other noble does the same thing, like that somehow makes it okay. Liam doesn't care. With one clean slash, he ends it. Afterward, he tells Amagi to dig into every noble on the planet and deal with anyone who's dirty. But Amagi tells him to take a breath first. Liam's still shaking. This was his first time killing someone. He can't even let go of his sword until Amagi gently helps him. She explains that if he wipes out every corrupt official right now, it'll throw the whole system into chaos. There'd be no one left to run things. So she suggests creating artificial workers, doll-like units, to handle the work instead. Liam agrees. He trusts her call. Sometime later, Liam shows up at the training area, feeling confident again. He's nailed the sword basics and is ready to move on. He walks up to suit up for a new phase of combat. But right then, Yasushi appears and warns him that relying on the usual high-tech gear will hold him back. So Liam turns to Mashida and asks if there's a tougher option. Mashida tells him there is, but it's old school, fully manual, and so hard to use that hardly anyone's managed to pilot it. Yushi heads over to an old shrine, pretending he's there to look for ancient treasures. But in reality, he's just annoyed. Liam's getting better way too fast, and the training that was supposed to be vague and confusing is somehow working for him. Yushi knows he can't keep tricking Liam forever. So, to drag things out and keep the cash flowing, he decides to come up with another pointless task. While looking around, he leans against a random wall, and surprise, a hidden switch clicks, opening up a dusty chamber with a worn-down robot knight inside. It looks ancient, but for Yushi, it's the perfect excuse to keep Liam busy and distracted. Far from there, a dark being known as the Guide continues his usual routine of feeding off people's bad vibes. He makes his way to Earth and spots a guy who completely loses it because his lunch order came with onions. The Guide enjoys the snack, but wants something deeper, something more satisfying. Back in Liam's world, Yushi tells Liam that fixing the old machine, now named Avid, is his next challenge. Liam, always eager to grow, agrees and starts prepping right away. He's outside training with his loyal butler Brian, practicing some flashy over-the-top move that Yushi taught him just to waste time. Brian watches silently, not convinced this is helpful. He knows Avid is a family heirloom, but still thinks it's outdated junk. Liam, though, believes using such a relic will sharpen his instincts better than any modern tech. Elsewhere, Amagi, the AI maid, shows up to inspect Avid. She's not thrilled. She doubts Yushi even knows anything about sword fighting, and this training method seems more like stalling. Still, she does her job, since Liam told her to, getting to work on the broken-down knight. Later, a skilled engineer named Nias Carlin arrives with her repair team. Liam greets her warmly at the landing site. As they talk, Nias spots Amagi and raises her eyebrows. Curious why an android is standing so close to someone of noble blood, Liam assumes she's judging him, getting a little defensive about his choice to keep an AI as part of his household. But Nias actually thinks androids are cool and quickly turns into a fan, geeking out over Amagi's custom design. She gets a little too hands-on, though, and Liam has to stop her before she crosses the line. They head over to the storage unit where Avid is kept. Nias takes one look and bluntly says it's a pile of scrap. She suggests buying a newer model, but Liam is firm. He's not interested in some factory-made robot. Avid is the one he wants to use no matter what. Nias warns him it's going to be tough. The robot's parts aren't even available anymore, and its size doesn't match the modern builds. Repairs will be expensive and messy, but Liam doesn't care. He says they can just retrofit it, using pieces from the newest units to boost performance. Still, because Yushi demanded that Liam learn everything the hard way, he asks Nias to leave out all automatic features and keep everything manual. He even requests some flashy moves, like a detachable fist that launches like a missile. While all this was going on, Yushi showed up at the warehouse to check in. The moment he saw Naz, he was frozen, completely love-struck. She was everything he wanted in a woman, except she completely ignored him. He kept trying to talk, even threw in a few weird pickup attempts, but she didn't notice. She just kept talking business with Liam. Watching them talk like some rom-com couple made Yushi burn with jealousy. So, as revenge, he came up with a cruel training idea. He told Liam to balance on a log, floating in a river while blindfolded. Then, to make things worse, Yushi started shooting tennis balls at him using some crazy machine gun he built himself. Of course, he acted like it was all to help Liam grow, but in reality, he was just mad that Nas paid more attention to Liam. Liam struggled big time. The sword he was holding had weights on it, and he could barely stay on the log. But no matter how hard it got, he kept going. He believed that if he trained hard enough, he'd get stronger, even if it meant taking a few hits along the way. Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, a pirate named Goez walked into his ship's prison section. He had locked up a bunch of women, and one of them was Princess Christiana. Without explaining much, he pulled her aside and said they had reached their next destination, Treasure Island. Boas stared at Christiana like she was some kind of jewel he wanted to add to his collection. He dragged her into a creepy lab full of failed experiments. Inside, there was a woman who had been turned into something monstrous through twisted experiments. Goas tossed her aside like garbage, then told Christiana she would be his new project. With all the time in the world and no one to stop him, he began planning what to do with her. His assistant casually suggested they start with something horrible, like damaging her legs. But Goaz, always one to outdo cruelty, said he had something even worse in mind. He wanted to take her eyes and attach them to her hands. Christiana was horrified. The lab was filled with jars containing broken victims, proof that unless someone saved her soon, she'd become just another failed experiment. Weeks go by. Back at the base, Nias finishes fixing up Avid, giving it a bunch of crazy upgrades just like Liam asked for. But her job isn't done yet. She takes Liam inside the cockpit to teach him how to control it. For some reason, she decides the best way to teach him involves removing half her clothes. Because why not, right? Trying not to stare, Liam follows her instructions and powers up the machine. Avid scans him and locks him in as its only pilot, so now no one else can use it. Super hyped, Liam tries to move it and falls, face first. Nias laughs a little and explains that Avid doesn't have any fancy balance or assist features. It's completely manual, no buttons to help, no shortcuts. But there's a silver lining. If Liam manages to master this old-school mech, he'll be able to control it like it's his own body. That thought alone gets him pumped up and ready to train even harder. Liam finally manages to stand up and walk steadily while controlling the mobile knight. He guides it out of the warehouse, feeling a bit more confident. Nias reminds him that staying focused and having a clear picture in his head is key to operating the mech properly. She steps in to adjust a few settings for him, but when she leans too close, something unexpected happens. And suddenly, Liam's concentration takes a weird turn. The mech responds to that shift in his thoughts by making a weird hand movement, like it was reaching for something it shouldn't. Nyasa catches on right away, realizing what was going through Liam's mind, but he insists he didn't mean to do it. Meanwhile, Yasushi starts suspecting that Liam is messing around with the mobile knight inappropriately. On the flip side, Brian is getting emotional, happy to see his master finally showing interest in something other than swords and fighting. Yasushi, now furious, believes Liam is wasting his potential and decides to push him through tougher training routines. Time passes, and no matter how hard Liam tries, he still can't pull off his master's so-called legendary move. He starts doubting if he even has the skills for it. Amagi, watching closely, begins to question if the problem is actually with Yasushi's teachings. She tells Liam that she's had her doubts about Yasushi for a while now, but Liam refuses to believe anything bad about his mentor. Instead, he thinks that maybe there's some sort of hidden magic involved in the move. Eventually, it hits him. It's not the blade doing the cutting, it's the energy he channels into it. So he stops swinging wildly and instead begins focusing all his power into each strike. He trains non-stop, month after month, and eventually, after what feels like forever, he finally pulls it off. The funny part? That technique never really existed in the first place. It was just a myth. Years later, Liam's all grown up and wants to show his progress. He stands far away from a log, swings his sword, and slices it clean through without even touching it. Yasushi is stunned. His bluff of a technique somehow turned real. He hides his shock, though, and tells Liam there's still more to learn, just to save face. A few weeks later, Liam is on board his battleship with Amagi when they get urgent news. A tiny, unguarded planet in his zone has been hit by space pirates. The soldiers stationed there are heavily outnumbered and struggling. Amagi quickly comes up with a sneaky plan to flank the enemy using the planet's gravity and terrain. Liam agrees, ordering the fleet to trap the pirates while he heads out to protect the power plants directly. Brian pleads with him not to go, but Liam isn't the kind of guy to hide behind others. He suits up and jumps into his mobile knight, blasting off toward the battle. Catching the pirates off guard, he slices through their machines one after another before they can even react. To make things flashier, he fires off a plasma beam to knock down another enemy. Then he uses his version of the flash strike, cutting through several mechs from a distance in one go. The pirates, now scared out of their minds, start retreating fast. As a final move, Liam uses Rocket Punch, a massive blow that launches a mech's arm like a missile. It works great, but Liam isn't thrilled with it. He immediately complains to S, saying he wanted a punch that throws the whole arm, not just the hand. Amagi cuts in, giving him a quick update. They've only captured a small number of enemy ships, while a third were destroyed and the rest got away. Still, Liam considers it a victory and gives Amagi credit for the solid plan. Ghost just got the news from one of his goons that Liam pulled off a huge win. He's fuming. He never thought Liam would actually be a threat, and now the tide is turned against him. But Ghost isn't the type to throw in the towel. He's dead set on making Liam crawl and beg before he's done. What really gets under his skin, though, is that the fleet that was supposed to be on his side, they bailed. They dipped from the fight after getting smacked around by Liam's forces. That betrayal, Ghost takes it personally. He tells his lackey to launch every last ship they've got to hunt down and wipe out those cowards. Doesn't matter if they were allies 5 minutes ago, Ghost wants to make sure everyone knows what happens when you run from the pirates. While he's plotting revenge, he turns his attention back to his new toy, Princess Christiana. He's already twisted her into something inhuman, like putting her eyes in her hands for starters. It's his way of having fun, showing how far he's willing to go. Back on the other side, Liam returns to his main ship, feeling pretty good. He's chatting with Amagi, proud of how smoothly the battle went. She compliments him and thanks him for protecting one of their key planets. Liam's especially thrilled because he managed to snatch a bunch of pirate ships too, since by Empire rules, they're now his. He's pumped, dreaming about cracking them open and finding chests of riches. But when he finally checks the loot, there's no shiny gold or sparkling gems inside. Instead, it's all rare metals with names that sound like spells. Stuff like Ori Calcum and other high-tier alloys. Super valuable for making weapons, but to Liam, it's kind of a letdown. He was hoping for old school treasure. Amagi and Brian try to cheer him up, explaining that these metals are way more useful than shiny rocks. And apparently in this world, diamonds are cheap since they're just carbon. Same goes for gold. It's pretty worthless here due to some science-y reason Amagi throws in. Liam, despite spending years inside a learning capsule, still doesn't seem to care. He just wants his gold fix. He even tells Brian to bring him some gold just to satisfy his old Earth cravings. Brian laughs and says they've got a bunch lying around since it's used for electronics. Liam immediately tells him to melt it down and turn it into coins. He wants his room full of them like some fairy tale king. He's in his 30s now, but he still acts like a spoiled kid. Amagi throws him a look that screams, "Seriously?" And while Liam is busy fantasizing about useless bling and commissioning swords made of those rare metals just for fun, Amagi brings him back to reality. She shows him a report through a hologram pointing out a major issue. Out of the 10,000 battleships in their domain, less than 3,000 are even working. Only 2,000 are good to go in case of an emergency. Liam's eyes widen. They actually managed to beat the pirates with just that? Turns out, it was mostly thanks to Liam tearing through enemies in his mobile suit and the pirates being cocky and assuming Liam was just some broke nobody. Liam nods and gives Amagi credit for her tactics too. She's the brains behind the scenes after all. Liam was seriously thinking about getting rid of all the junky old ships that barely worked. Amagi agreed right away, but Brian wasn't having it. He argued hard. Throwing away thousands of ships would make them look weak in front of enemies. One word led to another, and suddenly, Amagi and Brian were going at it like cats and dogs. As usual though, Liam sided with Amagi. He decided to sell off the valuable metals he got from the pirates and use the cash to buy some decent second-hand battleships. He didn't really trust Brian's ideas anyway. The last guy who did, Liam's dad, ended up buried in debt so deep it might as well have reached the core of the planet. And guess who had to clean up that mess? Yep, Liam. Far away, on a different planet, a woman named Nias was busy showing off her new battleship at a tech expo, hoping to wow the investors. She put her whole soul into building that thing, making sure it performed like a beast, but it looked like a floating trash can. Investors didn't even blink. They moved on. Then came her competitor, Ulisha. Her battleship was sleek, classy, and had luxury rooms fit for nobles. Even though it wasn't as strong as Nias's ship, it looked good. That was enough. Investors were sold instantly. Nias was left standing there, embarrassed and angry. She couldn't believe that appearances beat performance. Again, worried her boss would chew her out, Nias came up with a plan. Trick Liam into buying her battleships. She figured he was just a rich dummy who'd fall for anything. Meanwhile, the guide, that weird emotion-sucking guy, was still wandering around looking for misery to feed on. He found a guy glued to his computer, raging at his screen while playing games all day. That gave him a little snack. But he wanted more. So he traveled back to Liam's world, sure that Liam would be drowning in stress by now. Except when he arrived, he was stunned. Liam's territory looked like a whole new world. Modern buildings, buzzing streets, solid defenses. It was nothing like the rundown dump it used to be. The guide was speechless. How did this guy, of all people, pull this off? Still, he didn't give up hope. He remembered the fake sword master he'd planted in Liam's life a while back, hoping to mess him up from the inside. Surely that fraud would have sabotaged something by now. In a local tavern, people were actually praising Liam, calling him a great leader who captured pirates and brought in resources, a real step up from his father. But not everyone was impressed. Yushushi, the so-called sword teacher, was sitting at the bar, bitter and grumbling. He was mad because Liam kept getting better at sword fighting, and no matter how hard he tried to teach him the wrong stuff, Liam still improved. The bartender couldn't understand why a teacher would be upset about a good student. But Yushushi wasn't a real teacher, just a con man pretending to be one. He knew that if Liam figured it out, he'd be toast. The guide showed up at the bar to check on things and saw Yashushi melting down in frustration. He was supposed to be Liam's downfall, but now he was the one falling apart. And Liam? That guy was off slicing through trees in his backyard like a total pro, thinking Yashushi was still better than him. Clueless. Liam talked with Amagi about how far he'd come, born into a mess of debt, stuck with useless ships and fake teachers. And yet here he was, doing just fine. He even believed the guide had helped him and was thankful. That thankfulness was like poison to the guide, who only thrived on misery. He felt sick, like he might fade away right there. He tried to survive off Yashushi's frustration, but it wasn't enough. He needed Liam to crash and burn, bad. But he decided to wait. After all, the best time for disaster is when everything looks perfect, right? Later, Amagi told Liam about a new opportunity. The Imperial Army was clearing out some of their old weapons and selling them off. Since they needed more ships anyway, it was a good chance to grab some gear. There was one catch though. Liam had to take in some of the army's leftover soldiers too. That didn't sound great. But Amagi reassured him that these soldiers were trained and well educated, so Liam took the deal. The guide watched it all, hoping this would be the crack he needed. Maybe those soldiers would turn on Liam. Maybe this was finally the beginning of the end. For now, he'd wait and watch, because sometimes the fall hits hardest when you're standing at the top. Yashushi wakes up, feeling like trash, his head pounding from last night's drinking. He regrets going overboard, but there's no time to mope. Out of nowhere, Nias drops by. She's not there to check on him though. Her real goal is to figure out how to get Liam to buy her weird new weapons. Meanwhile, Yashushi, in his half-drunk state, totally misreads the situation. He thinks she's into him, because of course, his ego's bigger than his brain. Their conversation spirals into nonsense, with Nias trying to subtly ask what kind of stuff Liam likes. She's hoping to learn what kind of tricks or appearances could influence him to buy her gear, even if it's junk. But Yashushi, in true clown fashion, thinks she's trying to flirt. He starts going on and on about what kind of clothes and styles he finds attractive, thinking he's being all smooth. Nias, completely misunderstanding, assumes he's spilling Liam's preferences and takes notes like it's classified info. So she shows up to Liam's place later, dressed in a flashy outfit she thinks will totally hook him. Unfortunately for her, Liam couldn't care less. He doesn't even flinch. Compared to someone like Amagi, she doesn't stand a chance. Before she can even do her little show, Liam shuts it down and tells her to get to the point. She explains her weapons pitch, but Liam isn't interested. He just bought a bunch from the Imperial Army. She panics, trying every desperate move to get his attention, but it only annoys him more. Her outfit actually brings back bad memories. In his previous life, his wife wore the same kind of flashy stuff, not for him, but likely for the guy she was cheating with. The look on Liam's face turns cold. Nias thinks she's impressing him, but really, he's trying not to lose his temper. Still, he recognizes how persistent she is. Since she's not backing down, and her whole appearance is getting on his nerves, he figures the fastest way to get rid of her is to just buy a few weapons. He checks with Amagi if they have the money, and luckily they do. So he tells her to wrap it up. Nias gets so excited she stumbles out of the castle, calling up her co-worker to brag about how Liam couldn't resist her charm. She paints a whole story about how he was mesmerized by her. Brian overhears this and gets pissed. He can't believe Liam would be so weak over someone's looks. Yashushi also hears the gossip and loses it too. He's mad that his own personal tastes ended up being used on someone else, especially Liam. And while they're all losing their minds over this, Liam's just relaxing, head resting on Amage's lap, enjoying the calm and completely unaware of the chaos going on behind the scenes.